But while I was out in California, so I went to Berkeley for my master's in documentary, and I studied with the likes of Michael Pollan. So, I did a whole story tracing basically this new semen sorting technology in the artificial insemination world of the dairy industry.
Whoa.
Which has some very interesting characters, and I've got a 5,000 word rough draft that I can send you that never went anywhere. But that was with Michael Pollan, who's a world-renowned food writer. I covered food and small business for a hyper-local website called Mission Local in the Mission District of San Francisco.
No way.
So that sort of food through line was always there. And then when I came back to Detroit, it was specifically for the restaurant critic position. So then it was like finally I kind of had everything had come together under that umbrella.
Yeah. And then you came back to your dream job, basically.
For sure. And they still allowed me to make films while I was at it too, so.
Amazing.
So yeah, it was kind of the best of both worlds.
What was like a typical day like then as a food critic?
I mean, it depends because, while it's not like I was doing a review, it wasn't a traditional sort of anonymous food critic. You go to pick your spot for the week and you write your column for the week. Like it was definitely a lot more dynamic than that because I was really covering the dining scene in Metro Detroit, while also doing short documentaries while developing a longer documentary for the Free Press. Also doing events. We had this takeover dining series that is ongoing now still, and so it was super dynamic. I mean, on any given day, I'd definitely be eating a lot. I mean, that was the one thing that as soon as I took a buyout. And I dropped, 35 pounds almost immediately. Not immediately, but over the last year, I'm down 35 pounds. And
good for you.
People are like, well, what did you do? And I was just like, well, I stopped doing my job, So that was the one constant of the job was a lot of food.
That's not a problem.
That you can guarantee, but everything else about the day could have been different.
Well, that's awesome. What's do you have a story of something ridiculous that happened during your time doing food critic, like being a food critic?
Boy, well, I mean, just crazy eating. Let me think of the most.
Because for me, my dream is to eat food and talk about it with the right people, continuing to do that.
The most intense were when outside food writers would come, like national food writers would come and visit, and we'd hang out and do the whole whirlwind tour. There was one time where we hit with Khushbu Shah, who is she's a Michigander, she's the restaurant editor at Food and Wine. But, the day that we spent together, I think we went to 8 or 9 different spots from we started at Warda and then ended at Street Beat. But in between, I think we had dinner at Mink. We stopped. Did we stop for a cheese dome at Le Bon Sweets? I don't even you know what I mean. It was just a ton. It was a lot. Oh no, we went to Kahwa House for their pastries and the coffee. I think we might have stopped for a cheese dome too. It was just a lot.
All of these different experiences, these beautiful things that you need to see adventuring in the Metro Detroit area.
Yeah. Just in a day too. And that was the craziest thing.
It's a hell of a day. What time did you start?
I think we met pretty early. I think we met at 11. Maybe it was noon. I mean, so place an hour. It was okay, but at the end of it at Street Beat, I was just I was dying.
I'll just take the one item, thank you. You can't just get a platter of everything all at the same time.
No, but you still have to. I mean, because you have to taste everything. So that's the thing.
Damn, that's a bummer though. You might you would probably lose some of the food or have to throw it away or give it away.
I thought of another really. This is really bad. So this may be a little. It's not really bad. It's just. It sounds worse than it is. I once went to San Francisco to do a story on Chinatown that never happened.
Oh.
And I mean, I was in town for a different reason. I was in town screening a film that I had made for the Free Press called Dinner in Abruzzo. But while there, I had it was a $900 dinner with a friend, and then another dinner afterwards at Mr. Jew's, and never wrote about it.
Oof.
That's a. Yeah.
Sorry. We apologize to everybody in San Francisco that's watching right now. Was it good? You can talk about it now. Was it good?
The food was it was good. I mean, not the $900 meal actually.
Really?
Yeah, it was not good. And then at that point, it was just I went all that way, spent all of the company's money, just to pan a place. It didn't feel right. So I was trying to do a larger trend piece, and then that just didn't, pan out. And sometimes that happens. And then you get swept up in the new cycle, and then it's too late. So
And that's the biggest thing for me is like, if you're going to spend $900, it better be worth it. Like bang for your buck for me
I can't
is the
afford
number
that.
one.
You know what I mean?
Right?
It was really just because, you know, I had an expense account.
Which is cool. I would love to have an expense account.
I'd love to have one back. So
yeah. Let's get you a new job. Or just let's make more money otherwise.
Yeah, there we go.
So the pandemic hit. And during the pandemic, that's kind of when you had the moment to step away. During that time, there was a huge transition, I think, in the food industry. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of trends unfold from it too. A lot of trends that I'd like to talk to you about, both on and off air.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think that it's really important to me to hear your perspective on kind of what happened with the restaurant industry as a food critic during the pandemic, and then kind of how you saw it.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's have a conversation about this because you know, it's where do you want to start? I mean, the you know, like kind of right when it happened, I actually covered Mudgie's last ship. Mudgie's, you know, they usually have their, it's the Corktown Parade on that Sunday is like their busiest day of the year. And at that point, I think the cases, this was the Sunday before, like the governor hadn't closed down the restaurants. There was, you know, none of the health mandates had come in, but it was like the first cases were confirmed the previous week. Everyone was on edge. And so like my last, I guess, story in the before times was covering you know, what would have been Mudgie's last shift, because he had already made the decision to close down out of safety, and just said, right, you know, hopefully we can come back and hopefully this will be a 2-3 week thing like people were saying at the time. You know, obviously it didn't turn out that way, but so he, you know, they did that, and literally the next morning is when the governor, you know, and we got news a little bit early that the governor was going to be announcing this at noon that restaurants were closing down. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, and then everything changed at that point. So, I mean, we are, you know, it was already sort of happening. And even as COVID was sort of like coming, I remember Omar at Saffron des Trois too, we did a piece on him just because he was instituting all the new cleaning protocols and things, right, you know, while still staying open. But yeah, I mean, I think it was March 16th that, you know, that the shutdown came. And then at that point I basically said, well, like, I'm taking off my critic's hat there, because like what criticize any type of criticism at this point of that sort of nature is that's just mean-spirited. Yeah. I'm just going to try and document this moment because there was so much news and like so much happening and so many things changing every day that like that's what the work became, was just trying to keep people updated on like where, you know, there's also some food pantries, like here's some food assistance and here's, you know, some, you know, it's just different every day. And the pace of it just became also kind of, you know, untenable.
Yeah, I think that was really important. I mean, from the perspective of somebody like myself as well, who's ingrained in the food community, working with so many different people, it was very much our goal as the community to just kind of continue to uplift each other, to make sure that the people who were continuing to work tell the greater public how we were doing so,
yeah, and
for what reason and why. I think the why was really important to everybody, because at that point in time, everybody was becoming a little bit more down in the dumps.
Well, and information, you know, there's so much conflicting information and disinformation, you know, disinformation and misinformation. It's just like, even just getting, you know, some clarity on what is protocol and what isn't, or even, you know, I had restaurant owners calling me, asking me how to get to like the, you know, who's the bureaucrat or what should they do? And it's like, I don't know. I'm just documenting this along with, you know, but you know, it was just there's real desperation is what I'm saying. Like, I mean, there's people who just felt like they were completely out of options. And at least like if during that time we could provide, you know, a little bit of light on the situation and like, and even sometimes I took on stories that I never would. They were just like distraction stories, you know, like just to give people a little bit of like hope. Like there was like some guy in Oak Park made like a little squirrel cafe on his yard, and it was like getting all these Facebook views in like, you know, on the other side of the world where squirrels are not, you know, a common thing. And so I just wrote, you know, it was just like this little toss away story. But I remember, you know, I was just locked away in my bedroom. My kids are screaming out there. And I'm just like in my bed, because that's where I was working from mostly, in my bed with a phone like this on my laptop and interviewing this guy in Oak Park about his squirrel cafe. And it was just, you know, it was like a stupid little thing, but it was like, maybe that made a few people smile that day, you know, in the midst of all that darkness, because outside of it, it was just a lot of darkness, as you know.
It really was. And it's nice to know that a lot of people have been mentally working themselves out of that over the last year or so.
Yeah, I mean,
as well as we can,
yeah,
right? Yeah, it's different right now with everything that's kind of popped up, at least, with the new Delta variant. And I mean, when this airs, who knows kind of where we're going to be again.
Right.
But I am proud to say, like, during the pandemic, I personally have seen a lot of changes in the food industry for the good, and, maybe for hopefully the better in some ways. You look at the traditional restaurant model and kind of have been seeing or noticing how things have changed from that, and maybe it's changing for the better, where like pop-ups. Let's talk about pop-ups for a second. Pop-ups have come in, and like you said it to me, they've been filling in the gaps where restaurants haven't been able to.
Right.
And I think that it's really cool to kind of see how so many different people, whether they've worked in the food community previous or are jumping in now, have the ability now to deliver and create a food opportunity for other people in the ways that we haven't been before.
I think the scene here in Detroit and like Metro Detroit has been a lot more collaborative in general than other areas. But then with the last, since the pandemic, it's only like, I think the pandemic just really accelerated a lot of the trends that were already happening, but it just kind of, hit the fast forward button. What would have taken maybe a decade of the slow, painful kind of, happened in a much faster, more painful way, right? But, you're seeing, the pop-ups and just this collaborative nature. The wages, frankly, I mean, even that is like there's really been sort of kind of like a de facto general strike that has led to higher wages all of a sudden across the industry.
Totally.
I mean, it's a huge struggle for operators who are, going through everything of the last, but so it forces them to be more creative and, bring in pop-ups or bring in other operators to fill in the gaps where they can't. I mean, I've talked to so many people over the last year and a half too, who were, these restaurant operators who just like were, sorry, the AC.
The AC is off.
It's so nice and quiet now.
It's going to be a lot warmer now.
Oh, I don't know. We're going to get sweaty now.
Steamy is the word I like to use.
I like a good schwitz. So many restaurant operators who are just like already it's like thrown one impossible thing after another impossible thing. And I see it, I see it from their side that like now they're going to have to raise their, their prices on the menu to pay, the staff what they should have been paid all along, probably, and the ones who are most successful that I'm finding are the ones who had this sort of more collaborative, community driven sort of business model already in play.
Absolutely.
And you can even look outside of Detroit for that, but like you look at like Martha Hoover in Indianapolis, who she's been paying, for 30 years, she's been paying her staff, healthcare and benefits and childcare, I think.
Amazing.
And like there, she's got like 12 places still going, and they haven't lost, many of their 400 employees, because she already had those more, those systems that should have been in place across the board, that now all these other operators are sort of being forced to more painfully adopt.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of really cool to see, because I mean, at least for me, and the perspective that I have is when I walk into a place, you can kind of feel the vibe, right? You can understand if the employees love their jobs. You can understand if the owner is very much a part of the organization, whether it's a large organization like 12 locations or if it's even just one shop.
Yep.
You know the sensation with, the flavor of the food, the feeling, the overall vibe when you walk in. And I think that you're right. A lot of those businesses have been doing fairly well during this time, because that vibe is evident to every single one of the customers that walks in through that door, or in this case, outside of a window.
Well, I think it comes down to the fact that they know what their values are and what is important, and stand by those. I mean, that's once your mission is clear, you know how to act, right? Almost in any situation that's thrown at you. So if you really know what your values are, and they're, and part of your values is to take care of your employees, to give that hospitality to everyone, including the people who work for you. Totally. That if you're a true hospitality business, then COVID, yes, despite it being still an untenable, huge, like really insurmountable challenge, I'll use every hyperbolic word I can think of. You still have this kind of code that you know how to operate by, you know? And so if you don't stray from that, it just clarifies the whole operation.
Amazing.
Right.
I'm happy once again to be part of that community.
Yeah, for sure. And you're totally part of it, you know.
It's not just me though. It's every single one of the customers that comes and supports a pop-up.
Sure.
They come because they know of the people that are behind it. They come because they know the passion is truly there. And I think that has a lot to do also with the different businesses that have then transitioned their restaurant model to something different. You know, looking at Mudgie's, we mentioned Mudgie's, they're operating out of a window. And they have their patio open. Looking at Batch, same thing. All of these different restaurants have completely reconfigured their traditional restaurant model. And right now, fine dining is probably one of the only ones that still is consistent to the traditional restaurant model. But even so, do you think that's going to change?
You know, I don't know. I feel like I've stopped making predictions about, you know, because every time I do, COVID throws another curveball and the whole situation sort of changes. I think fine dining is tough just because it's so labor intensive. But on the flip side, there is, you know, the quirk of the business model that you can pre-sell tickets and you can control your food costs that way. Prefix, you know, you can figure out your margins that way.
Totally.
So,
which is nice. And Frame, for example.
For sure. Yeah. But also, yeah, I mean, anyone who uses Talk, you know, is familiar with that system where you basically buy tickets to your, you know, dining event essentially.
I never heard this.
Yeah.
No. What is Talk?
Talk? Oh, yeah. It's like a POS system.
Okay.
It's actually the guys from Alinea developed it.
No way.
But it's like, you know, now a lot of restaurants across the country and maybe world use it. And so you basically pay for your experience up front.
What hasn't Alinea done?
Yeah. Well, right. I can get into we can talk about the Alinea experience, but
you went to Alinea before.
I've been once. Yeah.
Does it live up to the hype?
No, I'll send you the story I wrote for the Free Press because it was disappointing and
dang.
Yeah. It felt a little like dated, honestly. Like
bummer.
And the food it didn't taste good. And it was like it's just this hyper processed food that, you know, like at the end of the meal you just kind of feel like crap too.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not what you want paying $1,000.
It was a show. I mean, it was a show. Yeah, that was like, again, that was another like, luckily I wrote about this one, but you know, I didn't want to do that twice, I guess was a thing.
Sometimes you have to though. And that's the thing about a food critic is like, I admire your job. I admire the perspective that you have because you absolutely do need to throw some people down sometimes.
Yeah. It's not fun.
I wouldn't imagine so.
Not a fun thing to do.
In everything that I've done, I try to make sure that it's something like, if it's something that I don't like, I'll just say it's not for me. Right. Yeah.
And, you know, and people will take it personally. And that's the hard thing that it's like, it's really hard to avoid, you know, because people put their, you know, they take pride in their work. And when you're, you know, criticizing their work, it can, you know, and chefs also are not known to be the most egoless people, right? In general. So, yeah, that's, you know, the throwing down thing is, unfortunately, it's like, I feel like I got a little bit of a reputation for it just because of like the Empire Review and, you know, the No More Burgers thing. But like, because like, that's when sometimes when I get stopped on the and I sometimes do get like pulled in a restaurant, like, oh, are you that guy? You were the Empire Review guy. And I'm just like, that's not what I want to be known as, you know?
Well,
it's like,
no, but I mean, you, like I said, for good reason. There's certain things, there goes the AC again. Hi, AC. For certain things, but it does feel good when the AC kicks on. For certain things, there are, like you had mentioned, you know, the whole burger thing or Empire thing. Like, there was this beautiful thing that we had in the city for a long time, which is almost every single restaurant hinged on the fact that it was a bang for your buck. It was local people doing things for the local market, and the local market was absolutely people that couldn't necessarily afford larger scale, less than fantastic food.
$26 burgers or whatever. Yeah.
$26 burger, exactly. And I mean, there's definitely a market for that. You see more downtown / suburban markets coming in, being a part of that as well. But I think that with a restaurant like that coming in, doing something that everybody else has already done, just basically replicating the same thing, in my opinion, it's a lack of understanding of what the city is. Somebody told me a long time ago, and I like to say it often, that Detroit is a beautiful, beautiful work of art with so many layers of paint that's been added on over and over again throughout, you know, the past few hundred years of its existence. And until you can understand what that work of art is, that's when you can finally edge your mark.
Which is the opposite of the trope, the blank canvas trope. You know?
100%.
And that's the thing. It's like you can feel when somebody has that blank canvas perspective, right? Versus the one that sort of respects and nurtures what is already here and what is special about it, you know. And I'll admit to even like coming back to Detroit, it was like because it wasn't really part of my plan. You know, the restaurant critic thing was like I didn't, you know, it was kind of just like a let's throw my name in the ring and see if anything happens. I mean, a single person that worked at the Free Press, and we didn't have the best relationship because I had actually edited her copy at Hour a few years back and had done a pretty. Anyway, so you know, it just didn't. It like I had this like I had just come back from San Francisco, and it was like Oakland. We lived just outside of Oakland in Berkeley, but like it was just the Bay is such a diverse area.
Absolutely, it is.
You know, and it has so many offerings because of that diversity. And coming back to Detroit, it was almost like you didn't see that diversity in you know, it's either it's a black space or it's a white space, and the two kind of don't mix. Obviously, there's more spaces than that, but like that's kind of that was the general breakdown of what I saw coming back, and it just kind of it was disheartening. And I guess at the beginning, I was like, can we change this by bringing new offerings, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that, you know, what is Detroit lacking, you know, that could make it this more diverse kind of international city? And then I realized, well, no, that's not what we need to do. We need to celebrate like what is already here and figure out how to instead bring that to the audiences and like figure out how these audiences talk to each other and how we can kind of like create a common space,
Exactly.
you know?
Completely agree. When you can find something that maybe Detroit is lacking, but how does it then integrate with what Detroit needs?
Right.
That's what I love. I mean, for example, a Matt and Moe's. I'm not sure if you're a fan of Matt and Moe's. I love a good Chicago style Italian beef sandwich. And when they first started doing the pop-ups in order to hopefully fund their business, I thought to myself, I now don't need to go to Chicago for this sandwich. Now, this is something that I've loved personally because I love to go to Chicago for food. But to other people who may not have had the sandwich, to them, it's just another sandwich, right? However, it is tapping into a certain market. It's doing a certain thing, and they did it with the understanding that we want to be a part of the city. And by doing so, they were a part of Mudgie's. They were a part of other people that brought them in and helped them kind of bring in their food to other people. And I thought that was a really good way of doing it.
Yeah, and even now they're in a space in Hazel Park that has been the long-term kind of like the dairy. You know, it's like the dairy.
Doug's.
Yeah, Doug's Delight. But it's like the place where the community in Hazel Park would come and get their ice cream and their conies and their fries.
Totally.
And so, you know, even though they are this Chicago-style beef joint, they kept the what the community loves about that place. They kept the ice cream and all the floats and what it was known for. So 100%. Even that is just this collaborative kind of like going with it, what is already here. You know, so yeah, I love that.
I love that too. I think that they're a really good example of that for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the future. So you've got a lot of projects right now going on. I think one project in particular that we had talked about that I want to make sure that everybody knows about. Working title right now, Cold Water Kitchen.
Yep.
Documentary that you're working on.
Yeah, so this will be my first feature-length film, and I am co-directing with Brian Kaufman, who's the executive video producer at the Free Press. This is a Free Press project. It started out of some Free Press reporting. I was invited by, basically, I got a letter from an inmate at Lakeland Correctional Facility in Coldwater, Michigan, and it said, I'm the sous chef at this culinary program. You know, I've been here for 20 some years. You got to come check out what we're doing. It's great. You know, I was just kind of settling into my role. So whatever. I mean, fast forward, I get invited by the head of that program to come to this. They do like an annual symposium.
Okay.
Where they invite outside chefs to come see. It's kind of like a showcase basically for their culinary program, which is inside this level 2 prison. And I went and like they served me. It was a wild game feast. It was 8 courses. It was something out of a Jim Harrison essay with like, I mean, the first course I think was like, it was pheasant breast with Calvados cream sauce and avocado aioli. I mean, it was just like stuff that you barely could get around, in
Yeah.
this, at like the nicer restaurants in the city. I mean, it was just like, and
they're killing it.
like charcuterie boards from here to there, all, and everything is coming out of this like football sized garden in the back. So they have an outdoor garden you step out of this kitchen and there's a garden and it's surrounded by razor wire, but it's literally, they've got strawberries and watermelon and I mean, everything under the sun. Like right now is like their peak time. That garden right now is like overflowing with produce.
Damn, let's
that
go.
they then use in this culinary program, right? Well, the visiting situations are still a little odd. But anyway, I've been working on this film now. So I wrote a story about this program and then immediately started negotiating access with the Michigan Department of Corrections to get cameras in there. That's not something that MDOC is not really known for that. But, I mean, the chef that's been running this program has been doing it for 35 years. And he is just an amazing person. He doesn't. His name is Jimmy Hill, and he's like he's the main subject of this film, or he's one of the main subjects. As we follow 3 of his kind of students who are tutors through this program, and they're in various stages of incarceration, and it kind of goes deep with each character. But he has become sort of a like a mentor to me just as a person. He doesn't look at the files of any of the guys that come into his program. So, I mean, there are people who are there for murder. There's a guy in there that murdered his entire family. Who,
Wow.
like, I, as a journalist, after, while we were casting for our main, characters, or our main subjects, looked up everyone that we interviewed. And, like, that was just like, oh, like, it changed. I don't know. It really, just this whole experience has really challenged my notions of guilt and forgiveness and, but so this guy, Jimmy, doesn't know what any of his students have done, and he doesn't care because, like, for him, it's like his famous quote is, "When the judge hit the gavel, that was their punishment. While they're here, they just need to be about the business of food."
Amazing.
But he's more than just about food. Like, this guy is a father figure to a lot of men who haven't had a father figure in a long time. These guys are actually holding knives while they're in prison. I mean, the knives are tethered, but they're holding knives, and it's like, it's the first time that somebody has trusted them.
Damn.
And from that they can create some real, like, beautiful things. And and I'm so excited. We just signed an executive producer.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you. Her name is Desiree Vincent Levy. She's known here in the community as she's one of the co-founders of Detroit Kitchen Terminal, which during COVID was they were an organization that supported. What they do actually is training people who are coming out of prison, how to work in the restaurant industry, and also supplying that sort of pipeline to the restaurant industry. So her organization does that work for people who are already coming out of prison, and our film is about a program that's inside a prison. So it really, and Desiree also has extensive experience with the ACLU, and so our whole sort of engagement strategy for this film now is just. We're gonna have some really, really great events around it, and I think we're gonna take this thing and blow it up and make it as big as we can, and take it hopefully on a tour of prisons,
That'd be
across
really cool.
America, et cetera. I mean, it's I'm
Because
really excited about it.
When we're talking about, especially with, the ongoing Black Lives Matter movement that we've seen over the last, many years, specifically highlighted in the last year, a lot of people have realized that the correctional industry, I would call it, has been kind of maybe misused because we're unfortunately seeing that there's a lot of people that are coming out of jail and nothing has really been done. But in a system like this, what you're describing, it sounds like it's a little bit more of an understanding of how somebody can mentally work themselves into a better perspective, into a better world.
Well, that's certainly part of it. I think what Jimmy provides is this sort of alternative. He, even though he is part of the system, he offers a compassionate approach. Like, he is not he is from the community of a lot of the men that he, part of the film is kind of talks about how close he himself could have been, one of these inmates in his program.
Definitely.
And so that's key, but also just having compassion and treating them like humans and not treating them like the person they were on the worst day of their life when they made the horrible decision to do whatever it was they did.
Right.
I mean, if they even made that to begin with, because so many people are in prison for nonviolent drug offenses and
or wronful
crimes,
accusations.
poverty basically. So anyway, we don't have to go down that path too deep,
but it is an ongoing issue that I'm glad that you're going to be highlighting in the right ways.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Good for you, man.
It's exciting. So we have a rough cut. I mean, we're going to do the Film Fest circuit. Hopefully this next round, and hopefully by 2022, audiences will actually be able to see it outside of Film Fest. Some kind of wide distribution deal. We're still working all that out.
And this is a portion of Handshake Media.
No, well, I mean, now I'm sort of working as an independent producer, still tied to this to the film, but it's a project of the Free Press.
Very cool. Yeah. And Handshake Media, otherwise,
Curly Handshake.
Curly Handshake Media.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Curly Handshake Media.
Yep. I mean, that's just because most people can't pronounce my last name, so if you say Curly Handshake really fast, it sounds close enough, And
that's your Instagram name too, right?
Yeah. It just kind of keeps it easy across platforms. Yeah.
When I first saw your Instagram, I was like, Curly Handshake. That's genius.
Oh, thanks, man. Until I give you a curly handshake, and then
oh Jesus, I don't think I want that. And then another thing that I wanted to bring up too, perusing around Instagram, especially in the time that you're going to be spending at home, throughout the pandemic, I saw Janies pop up.
Yeah,
and I was like, Janies, this is awesome. As a consumer, in the city of Detroit, it's a fun organization. Tell me about Janies a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So Janies is my wife. It's a cannabis accessory and smokewear brand, but it's kind of, it came out of this desire to see sort of herself reflected in the space, because it is such a male cannabis in general is a male-dominated space. You go to a head shop and everything is like black, or like a space alien, closed in the dark, and it just looks like an Apple store. Yeah, or it looks like an Apple store. Yeah, well, that's the dispensary, but then the head shops are like, they look like they're in your mom's basement. And there's black, the black light. The vibe. Yeah, and so that goes through so yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is very much sort of James is a response to that. She saw this sort of necessary space for women and family identifying people to sort of be able to express their smoking sessions with a little bit more fun and just kind of whatever and colorful. So she sells rolling trays, pre-roll cones, grinders. She's got some really cool things in production for this for the holiday season that's coming up, and her new tagline is "Smoke the Patriarchy."
Nice.
So yeah, it's shop.janies is the handle.
Shop.janies. Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that.
Oh man, please, are you kidding me? I saw it pop up on not just other people's Instagrams that are your followers or your friends, but then also my friends as well. I'm not sure if you know Megan. Take a Megabyte.
Yeah, Megan is my wife, Katie. They are best friends. They've been best friends for 20 years.
I had no idea.
They have the same birthday, and Megan is she's helping Katie with a lot of the creative too. So yeah, shout out to Megan. She's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful looking product. The vibe is really cool, and I mean, furthermore, it just kind of speaks to the home. The home vibe that you guys have. I think what you've done in your creative career has been fantastic, and the uplifting spirit that I see you with your wife is really cool. It's nice to know that
Thanks,
for somebody like me that's building a relationship, that there's obviously even more so of an uplifting spirit that you can have with your partner. So that's really cool.
Wow, that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, awesome, man.
She's gonna love this too.
You brought something for me today. I'm starving. I'm hungry. Let's talk about this. What do we got, dude?
Yeah, so this is Serbian sausage. There's a local Serbian guy. I don't know his name because I get it through my uncle. Shout out to Uncle Igor, who buys this literally by the couple of ton at a time. And it's just
razor thin.
That's the way that I like it.
Oh yeah, you can see it right through the light.
Yep.
Oof.
I just got my knife sharpened too, so it's
that's the best way to do it right there. If you can see it like paper.
It's great with beer.
My God.
Right?
That's a thick taste. That's great.
You can see why he buys it by the ton load. But he distributes it to all of his friends in the Eastern European community. It's salty. It helps with the beer.
Absolutely.
And
it's a flavor that keeps building too. That's something that I've always looked for in good food.
But it's super simple. It's just, it's smoke, garlic, salt, pepper. I'm pretty sure there's nothing else. And pork. There's no other additives. It's not getting crazy with it's just really kind of highlighting that smoke spice.
And the pork is very
flavor.
much, you can get the pork flavor. That's the main thing that I'm getting is obviously the pork. The spices are there just to kind of help it, I would imagine. But like,
And the spices
honestly,
kind of creep up on you.
yeah, at the end you get a little bit of the back of the palate heat, which is really nice. Something also that you kind of look for, especially with dry spices. That's what you get. But the pork is the star of the show here.
Exactly.
This is awesome. It's really, it's very well flavored, but it's not too much of the spices to take over the pork. Awesome. And then you got some tomatoes.
The ginger. Yeah, these are just from my neighbor's garden.
Done deal.
Thanks, Amanda.
What's the neighbor's name?
Amanda and Kyle. Thanks for the tomatoes, guys.
Hell yeah, guys.
What else do you want to talk about?
Dude, I can talk to you for hours. Are you kidding me? Unfortunately, we only have an hour. So
Was that already an hour?
we're close.
Really? Damn.
We're definitely close to an hour.
All right.
A few things that I wanted to talk to you just about as we continue to move forward in what you do, in the way that you've transitioned yourself from a food critic to where you want to be today. Kind of what do you see yourself doing within the next few years here in the food environment?
Well, I mean, I think the mission doesn't change. I consider myself a food storyteller, basically using food as just the kind of the lens to tell stories. Really, my goal with any story is to cultivate empathy and compassion and understanding, for other people. And so I think food is a great vehicle to do that. Obviously, food is also more political than that. It has been used. I don't necessarily subscribe to this kumbaya kind of food brings people together. Yes, it can, but food also has, destroyed entire nations and, plundered others. So it's more complicated than that. But I also see food storytelling as a way for, people who may not know about a culture to comfortably enter it and begin to awaken their senses to the fact that there are all these other people that live in different ways and they eat different things, and they're people just like us, and I don't know, there's just something so kind of rooting about food to the human experience, right? Completely. That anyone can relate, and so for me, it's as long as I'm doing that, it doesn't matter what the medium is. But what I like now is a sort of freedom to be a part of the community rather than be an observer of the community, which was sort of required as a food critic and at the paper. I think criticism is great; it's needed. But for me personally, I would prefer to uplift and tell stories that
Definitely.
That aren't being told, and have that be the focus. And so that's basically it.
Yeah. You're criticizing now is from the perspective of a friend.
For sure,
telling somebody
exactly.
behind closed doors, kind of what you would think.
Well,
then.
and also just being more actively involved in the community, doing food pop-ups too, and just supporting people in other ways, and using those storytelling skills to really amplify other people's voices.
Yeah. And I think that's really important because, you've had the opportunity to do so for so long, and now you have the ability to bring some people to the forefront.
That's
You're doing a great job at it too.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk really quick. You've got a dinner coming up?
Yeah. Yes. So happy
Can we
to
talk
announce.
about it?
Yeah. As long as this is after August 31st.
So welcome to September, everybody. Welcome to September.
So September 26th at Frame, I'm collaborating with a woman named Deldora Damash, and she is from Uzbekistan.
Dang.
And she, I'm from the Soviet Union originally. And I wrote a column after the January 6th insurrection about how my family fled a failing regime to avoid destabilizing moments like this. And she emailed me afterwards. I was like, oh my God, it's another, Soviet person. So we just had a meal together. And she gave me her book that she had just written. And her personal story is really amazing. She grew up in this, Uzbekistan is a small country, by the way, of 100 million people. So it's not that small, but it's it's
pretty small.
It's between China and Mongolia. It's near Azerbaijan. So it's not talked about often. You can't find Uzbek food locally. You have to literally drive to Chicago to get it, unless you're part of some key Facebook groups.
Which would be cool, or just have a cool neighbor.
Yeah, or just have a cool neighbor. Yeah. Or are Uzbek yourself.
Yeah.
So in my culture, I grew up eating plov, which is it's the same as pilaf, but it's PLOV. Is kind of the more common anglicized version of it, and it's just a style of rice that is a traditional to Uzbekistan. and it was eaten across the Soviet Union. Like I grew up eating it. This is like my mother's food, and so I read Deldora's book, and it's about this. It's about her sort of escaping this conservative Muslim culture where she was. There was going to be an arranged marriage and everything, and she has this. She's a free spirit basically, and she ends up falling in love with a German guy, going against a family, marrying this German guy.
A little haram.
Then they then they escape from still Soviet like Soviet era East Germany into West Germany. She works for Radio Free Liberty for a while.
Wow.
It's just this crazy like romance story. And throughout the book though, she's describing these spice markets in Uzbekistan and the tea rituals, and it's just like, and I was reading it and I was like, this is finally the perfect excuse to have a Plov dinner.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm in September 26th.
That's right.
Awesome. I will be jotting that down for everybody at home. Please do that too. How do we find tickets?
I think it's framehazelpark.com.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I'll be, you can also check out my Instagram and stuff because I'm sure I'll be promoting it on all my socials.
And then for everybody at home, what are your social media channels? How do we find you?
Curly Handshake.
Curly Handshake.
Yep.
Just like one of those.
Yep.
But it's curly.
Yep.
Awesome. And that's on Instagram, Twitter.
I think it's on Facebook now too.
Yeah.
Just make it real easy.
Very cool.
Curlyhandshake.com.
Curlyhandshake.com. Yeah. Excellent. And then are there any other social media handles or any other websites that you want to tell everybody about too? We did shop.janies for sure.
Oh yeah.
Frame Hazel Park.
Yeah. Right.
Definitely check them out. A bunch of local dinners.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
you'll be hearing about like Coldwater Kitchen. I mean, that name may change, and you'll be hearing about it from like more official channels. As now I'm rogue, so I'm kind of outside of the Free Press official family. So,
but this will be part of the Free Press as well, though.
For sure, it is for the Free Press. Yeah, I mean, it's the Free Press has produced the film, but we are working with a lot of outside partners, so it's sort of taking on a life of its own.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I can honestly tell you, dude, if there's anything that you ever need from me as well, please let me know.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Happy to help you. I love what we've all done in the city together over the years. You've been very much, like I said, a part of the food community, working very diligently in continuing to broadcast the messages of what people have been doing here in the city. And I think specifically you've been one of the people that have been talking about how there's a certain amount of good that has taken place here in the city that needs to be continued to talk about, while also some people have been coming in and need to understand what that good was. And how it continues to take place. So I thank you very much for doing everything that you do. For sure, man. It's my pleasure to have you as the first guest on this podcast. I'm happy to talk to you all the time.
Hey, I'm honored. Invite me back whenever you want.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Let's have another beer,
Definitely down. I'm going to get you another one before you go.
Yeah, sounds good.
I want to thank everybody today for being a part of the podcast as well. I want to make sure that I thank the RSVP team as well. Stefan O, Michelle Wynn, Courtney Burke, and Ali Abad. My name is Carlos Parisi. That's Carlos_Parisi on Instagram. And then also on... I don't know. You can find me on Spotify. Listen to what I'm listening to. Other than that, I don't really use Facebook, and I don't know. I just kind of tweet in person. So I'm happy to say that we've done this podcast here today. We're going to do a lot more, and we're excited to show you a lot more about the culture, art culture, music culture, the community, the creative community that we have here today. So for all of you, thank you very much for listening. Hope you guys had a great time, and this night is some kind of part for you. My name's Carlos, and see you guys in the next one.
All right, thanks, perfect.
Kind of regretting the $900 deal for that.
That's okay. What do you mean? It's fine.
Is that one still on?
I mean, this is true.
No,
I